Alright, so it's been a minute, but we're back with some new info from Naoki Hamaguchi in regards to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, including nailing down the name of the game and the gameplay experience pretty much being complete. So, let's talk about it. Alright, so before we get to the FF7 Hamaguchi news, it was announced earlier today on Twitter that the face of Tekken for nearly 30 years, Katsuhiro Harada, will be leaving Bandai Namco at the end of the year, with Bandai Namco being the developers and publishers of the Tekken franchise. And this is incredibly sad news. This is a bummer. Harada is one of the last of the old guard, one of the last fighting game stalwarts within the industry who really championed not just his game, but fighting games in general. People like him, Ed Boon. Recently, with the passing of Tomonobu Itagaki, we're kind of losing people, man, and it really sucks. But Harada was someone who started off very early on in Tekken. I believe he did character voices on Tekken 1 and 2. I don't know if that was ever really confirmed. That's just kind of like the lore of Harada that kind of goes around the industry. But it wouldn't be until Tekken 3 when he would step on board as an actual game director. And he was someone who did boots on the ground type of work. He would travel the world with these massive Tekken arcade cabinets and get feedback from fans in real time. He was never afraid to communicate with them, especially with people overseas here in America. He was one of the few Japanese developers to really do that and actually open up to people here in America for feedback. He would participate in tournaments, play people at EVO. He had a really fun rapport with the audience, you know, the whole sit the hell down and shut the hell up, you know, don't ask me for shit kind of thing.
I'm very upset. I'm very upset. Shut up! Shut up! Shut up and sit the hell down! And don't ask me for shit, okay?
So he really endeared himself to the Tekken community and the fighting game community as a whole. Now, it wasn't always positive. There was some, push and pull between fans and developers at times, but he was always willing to champion Tekken in fighting games. And over the years, he would work his way up through the ranks and become less of a developer and work more on the executive director side and producer side. So he eventually would oversee a lot of different projects at Bandai Namco, not just the Tekken project. But even then, he was always still known as the face of Tekken. And he mentions in his post on Twitter, which is his official goodbye post, that a lot of personal things kind of led to this, the loss of personal friends in his life. I can't help but wonder if, the passing of Itagaki had an effect on this decision, because they were two guys who, kind of rose the ranks together within the fighting game industry. And they had a really great storied rivalry, but they also had a really close friendship with one another. And when you lose someone like that, I think it probably has a pretty heavy weight on you. He also talked about people within the industry reaching that age where they would retire and leave, and these were people that he really looked up to. So I think he's probably at that point in his life where he's just ready to just step back and, let go of all of these things. And this is a man who has really worked himself to the bone. Making fighting games is not easy. The long development times for these games can really wear on you. And as much as it sucks to have someone like Harada, who is such a legend within the industry, step away, if that's the right move for him, that's the right move, man. You got to prioritize yourself first, your mental health, whatever you're going through. And he has left an incredibly massive and storied career, not just within Tekken, but within fighting games in the gaming industry as a whole. And it looks like he kind of wants to experiment with some stuff. I don't know if he's going to leave the industry permanently, but he's talked about doing some DJing, which, go for it, man. You're 55, you want to DJ? Do some DJ work. He even put together a really cool 30-year mega mix of Tekken songs to celebrate the 30th anniversary, which he dropped on his Twitter account as well. So I just wanted to bring that up because I'm a huge fan of Tekken. I've been a fan since I first played Tekken 2 as a little kid. It's my favorite fighting game franchise, and it'll be really interesting to see where Tekken goes in the future. Tekken 8 sold incredibly well. Its story mode is really good. It finally brought Tekken into the modern era when it came to online fighting with proper rollback netcode. It's currently in a rough spot right now with its season 2, but they're working their way to try and find their footing again with Tekken, and I hope that they do. It's such such a great fighting game franchise, and it has a lot to offer, and I think they're just trying their best to figure out where they go from here. But thank you again, Harada, for everything you've done, not just for Tekken, but fighting games and video games as a whole. You will be greatly missed. Alright, so this interview is coming to us directly from content creator, and I hope I pronounced this properly, Julien Chiez, who I believe is a French creator who got the opportunity to sit down with Naoki Hamaguchi as well as Guillaume Broche, who is the co-director of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 during Paris Games Week, which is a pretty big deal, having an official interview with these two guys who are really good friends together for the very first time, right after both franchises collaborated with one another with a really beautiful art piece, is super cool. Now, if you guys would like to check out the full interview, I'll leave that in a link in the description down below. Just a heads up though, the entire interview, which is about an hour and 20 minutes, is all in French, including the subtitles. And I don't speak the French, so I had to wait for some translations to come through, and thankfully the folks over at the Shinra Archaeology Department watched the interview. They pulled some of the more important tidbits out and translated them so we can understand what the heck is going on. And we start off first with the name of Part 3. The SAD goes on to write, regarding the title of Remake Part 3, Naoki Hamaguchi says he and Tetsuya Nomura have talked about it and narrowed it down to 2 possibilities, which they want to decide on before the year is through. Now, we've covered a lot of info in regards to Remake Part 3. I genuinely cannot remember if they stated at one point that they already knew what the game was going to be called, but as of right now, they've narrowed it down to 2 games. Now keep in mind, this interview was done back in October, so it's been well over a month since this interview actually took place. But I'm kind of 2 minds about this info in particular. The first one being, if they haven't narrowed down the name of the game just yet, that probably means that the game will not show up at the Game Awards with a title reveal. Because how can you reveal this game without introducing the title first? So that kind of makes me think, yeah, it probably will not be at the Game Awards. Unless, maybe since there is a scenario where they've narrowed it down to 2 titles, maybe they've created 2 different trailers that have each respective title in them, so the one they pick is the one they can air for the Game Awards. Again, it's been some time since they did this interview, so maybe between then and now, they've already nailed down what they want the 3rd game to be called, and yeah, maybe it could show up at the Game Awards. Myself and a lot of other fans have kind of been throwing around the word Return or Returns potentially being the name of Part 3. I really like that. That's the one I would go with, but I'm not married to it. You know, I'm open to other possibilities. I believe during one of Subtext streams, somebody threw out the title Relive. I always liked Revengeance, but who knows? But Return is what I kind of lean towards. So this is a really interesting kind of piece of information, again, going into the Game Awards. We were all kind of hoping that maybe the game would show up there, but based on this, it really truly makes me feel it may not show up. So adjust your expectations accordingly. Now, with that being said, I do think FF7 will probably show up at the Game Awards, but purely to announce Rebirth being multi-platform. That's something that they announced previously in other interviews, that yes, the entire franchise will be going multi-platform, but if you want to, at the Game Awards, you can do a trailer for Rebirth for Xbox and Switch 2 with a firm release date, or at least a release window. That way, you can have people get excited for Remake, which is coming out in January, Rebirth, which will come out sometime in 2026, and maybe that can help line up some fans, the hype, and anticipation for Part 3 in a proper way. And the way I'm kind of looking at these things, we're all kind of assuming maybe Part 3 will release early 2027, maybe February or March of 2027. And looking at 7 Remake and 7 Rebirth, both of those games had about 8 to 10 months worth of marketing. So if the game does release early 2027, then realistically they would want to start marketing Part 3 probably sometime in June, which again lines up with Summer Game Fest. So from June all the way to the game's release, I would assume would be the big marketing push for Part 3. You talk about Rebirth going multi-platform, you build up the fan base even more. There's a lot of cool stuff they can do. But part of me, jokingly, kind of likes to think that maybe Hamaguchi has one pick and then maybe Nomura has his own. So maybe Hamaguchi's is something simpler like Return, and Nomura's like, we're going to call it Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 divided by 2 ×5 Invicticus Opera Omnia, because Nomura really likes those crazy Latin names. But who knows? Again, there's so much that could have transpired between October and now. They could have nailed down that title. We don't know. Up next, Hamaguchi talks about the Highwind gameplay experience essentially being complete. Hamaguchi would go on to say, I personally, as far as delivering an experience to players over the course of the trilogy, have never had any intention to make all 3 games into the same experience using the same design. For the first game, we wanted to really establish this as a remake and get that definition down. And then with part 2, we wanted to expand things further and include this open world experience, scaling up the experience from the previous one, like you said, and then continuing on with part 3. We wanted to offer a new experience, a new scale to players, and that escalation, I think, is really linked to the success of this project. And so in that vein, one of the really important keywords this time, like you mentioned, is Highwind, without a doubt. And already at this point, I'd say the gameplay experience itself is basically complete, and we're really now in the phase where we're seriously building things out to completion. And I'd say we've gotten to a point where I, as the director, am feeling super confident about the game in its completed form. And so honestly, I just want to see people playing it as soon as possible. But of course, it's got to be turned into a full game first before we can get it into people's hands. But we're deep in that phase right now, and I'm just excited to get it into a really compelling package for everyone. So I'm hoping everyone can hold on a little longer, as we're getting to a point now where we can offer all sorts of information about it to players. So please stay excited for that. So this is cool, and it connects back to an interview we did a while back where Hamaguchi was talking about they've already got specific keywords for part 3. And just to add some context, you look at Rebirth, for example. One of the keywords for Rebirth was bonds. And in that game, you see the characters really bond with one another. Their friendships grow in cutscenes and side quests and combat. It's super cool. And based on this response, it looks like that other keyword they weren't ready to reveal at that point was in fact Highwind. Highwind is going to have a really big role to play in part 3, really expanding that world and truly giving us that real open world experience, the go anywhere, do anything at any specific time with this incredibly big airship. And it's pretty cool to see how quickly they're moving through the planning and development phase of part 3, because it wasn't that long ago when Hamaguchi was saying, yeah, we're still fleshing out the gameplay experience, we're getting our systems online. They had some rough playable builds of part 3, and now he's just straight up saying like, yeah, our gameplay experience for part 3, that's pretty much done and figured out. Now we're just about to build the game. Now we just put it together and finalize it to completion, which is the actual development process of this game just getting started. And some people might hear that and go, oh, that means the game is really far away. And it could be, but I don't think the development process for this game is actually going to take as long as the previous 2 games, because so much of the world that's going to be in part 3 has already been built and established with Rebirth as well as Remake. And I mention Remake because a lot of us forget Midgar. This whole huge linear structure of Midgar was in Remake, and that's coming back in part 3. I assume they would expand upon it and add new areas, maybe a deep ground section, but so much of the heavy lifting of building this entire full world has happened already with those 2 games. And most of those assets will make their way back into part 3, which in theory should help boost the development time of this game. So I don't expect it to take as long as Rebirth did or as long as Remake did. And his quote at the end there of, yeah, we're approaching a moment where we have a lot of information that we'll be able to share with people is incredibly exciting. And that also leads me to believe yeah, development isn't going to take as long if they've got some stuff that they can actually share. And based on what we just talked about, now I'm starting to wonder, could that trailer be at the Game Awards? I don't know. Just based on how they're talking about it, it's well, they haven't narrowed down the title, but they have a ton of information that they've got ready to go that they can share with people. Man, the Game Awards is going to be a show to look at, man, in terms of this announcement. Will it be there? Will it not be there? Man, they're super excited about it. I'm super excited about it. Again, Hamaguchi is super confident, which is very rare for Japanese game devs. They usually are pretty reserved. We made a great game. We're very proud of it. Please check it out. And Hamaguchi is just out here, pardon how vulgar I'm gonna be with his dick swinging around everywhere. Like, yeah, we just finished the Highwind. We gotta just put this game together now. We got a ton of information. Like, it's gonna be incredible. So, my God, man, they're moving really, really quick. And I mentioned this in one of my reaction videos, but before you know it, we're gonna be playing the game. It's probably gonna be that quick of a transition where we're gonna get interview, trailers, and then boom, the game's just gonna be here. And based on this structure, I think the whole marketing and release thing, like I said before, it's probably gonna start in June, which means that it may emulate the release strategy they had for 7 Remake. In 2019, in May, we had that State of Play, which gave us the first revealed trailer, proper revealed trailer that is, for 7 Remake. And then they teased, hey, more info coming in June. To which we had that incredible E3 Square Enix Live 2019 presentation, which if you'd like to learn more about that, I did do a recent video talking about that presentation, what the hype was like going into it, how everyone in the community was acting. So if you'd like to check that out, I'll link that in the description as well as the upper right-hand corner of this video. I think the video came out really great, and it's just really fun to be able to share, especially for newcomers to the franchise, what it was like back then as we were anticipating this title. But Part 3, I think, could very much emulate that release strategy. Tease something in May with a trailer, and then go all out in June, maybe at Summer Game Fest, or maybe their own sort of presentation where they're like, hey, this is Part 3, Rebirth's coming very soon. Hopefully everyone will get on board and check out the finale when it comes out. But again, just going back to the Highwind, I'm just so excited to see what they do. This airship is huge. The world would have to then be very, very big too to justify using a ship that size. And the zones we got in Rebirth are plenty big. And now filling out the rest of the world with all of the areas that we have yet to visit, it just makes me wonder if those areas in particular are going to be bigger than the zones we got in Rebirth to not only accommodate the Highwind, but make it feel bigger and grander as we are traversing it. Man, I don't know what they're going to do, especially when it comes to like combat. Will we be doing combat within the Highwind? There's all of these cool theories thrown out from people of, well, Shinra may have some people in their own ships, and maybe there'll be cool situations where we're dogfighting. I threw out the possibility of, what if you had turn-based battles in the sky with the Highwind and you're fighting against other Shinra ships in the sky? There's so many possibilities when it comes to actually navigating, doing combat, the maneuverability of the ship itself, what's going to be inside of the ship. Will there be the Chocobo stable still there? Will there be shops? Will our crew be the infantrymen that Cloud wrangled up in Rebirth? I'm crossing my fingers those will be the guys, because they were really cool. And you could even have a scenario where the infantrymen, I'm forgetting the actual name of those guys, where maybe we run into them in the submarine. And instead of it being a hostile takeover of the sub, they see Cloud and they're like, holy crap, Captain, you're here. You want to do what? We're going to help you. And then they show up later as the crew for the Highwind. Again, there's so much cool world building that they've been doing so far. And to see all these characters just come back, whether they're major or minor, has me really, really excited. So we got to just wait a little bit longer. That information that Hamaguchi and the team, they've got locked and loaded. Eventually it will come our way, but we got to be patient. Now, speaking of Highwind and exploration, one thing that I hope the devs are able to do with Part 3, and I think they can do it because I felt elements of this within Rebirth, but I hope that they can craft a fully fleshed out, living, breathing world where I feel motivated to explore on foot, by Chocobo, by Buggy, and by Highwind. A world so beaming with life and activity and wonder that I never feel the desire to fast travel somewhere. You know, I keep looking back at my playthrough of Ghost of Yotei, and I will still say this, I truly believe that game has the best world exploration, interaction, and side quest integration I've ever experienced in a video game. It's seamless, it's organic, I never once got tired of roaming around on foot or by my horse. The world and its activities were so well designed that I can only count a handful of times where I actually fast traveled. There was always something or someone off in the distance where I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go investigate that corner and see what I find. So I hope Hamaguchi and the crew are able to kind of give us that kind of experience for part 3, which they've already hinted at in prior interviews of wanting to make exploration feel organic, more spontaneous, have things be missable. I want to be like, I wonder what's over on that side of the map. And then I jump into the Highwind and I fly over there instead of just fast traveling. So if anyone can do it, I think they can. And with that, we have reached the end of the video. Again, I'll leave a link in the description down below to Julian's video where he interviews Hamaguchi and Guillaume Broche. Super cool. Really feels like a really big event. And again, these are two guys who are genuine friends with one another and like just kind of talk and shop when it comes to game development and just really inspiring one another. And I think that's a really great positive image to move forward with because, you know, obviously online, I try to stay away from it, but there is that toxicity that can be there where, you know, people like to crap on one thing or over the other and compare, which, you know, valid criticism is fine. I'm cool with that. But, you know, it's just cool to see these guys lead by example of like, hey, like we're actually friends and we like each other's games and we inspire one another. So that's something cool and positive to, you know, take into the future. But with that being said, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think? I have a few questions. What do you think part 3 is going to be called? Second, do you think, based on the information in this video, that we will get a trailer for part 3 at the Game Awards? Third, I want to hear what you guys think about the Highwind. How do you think we're going to use it? Do you think it's going to be involved in combat? I want to know all the things. Let me know in the comments down below. If you made it this far into the video, I would appreciate if you click the like button. And if you want to hear more, you can subscribe to stick around. And I'm learning more about this thing called a hype button, which is new to me. I've watched plenty of videos online. I don't have access to said mysterious hype button, but apparently it helps boosts a video's performance and pushes it out into the algorithm. So if you happen to watch this video and you liked it and you want to help out the channel in some form, for free, and you see a hype button, feel free to click it. I would greatly appreciate it. With that being said, I'm Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.